Welcome everybody to the webinar. This is a quick introduction from my end. This is Vipin Gupta, and as you see my screen, I'm working as an Agile coach with AgiVetta Consulting, primarily into enterprise Agile consulting and coaching. Quickly a brief about today's topic, as it is signifying from the name Ailing while scaling. I'm sharing my experiences while working with different assignments, that when the organizations try to scale the agile, then what kind of difficulties and what kind of problems are being faced and what kind of challenges are being faced. Most of the things which I am sharing here are from my experiences, and I'll be more than happy to have a different point of view or the experiences through question and answer, which I'll be taking care at the end of the webinar. Moving on to our focus today. Here are some bullet points which I have listed to keep our focus concise and crisp. First of all, I'd like to share about what does scaling means to organizations. Basically, there are different viewpoints about the scaling. Some people are having different idea about what scaling agile means, and some people have different ideas. We are going to have a brief look into that. Then we are going to move with the agility blocks, that what are the main core part while achieving the agility across the organization. And then briefly talking about scaling agile and enterprise agility. Are these two related concepts? Are different concepts? How does these two things fit together? And approach to achieve agility across various functions. What are the various approaches? We are going to briefly talk about it. And finally, I'm going to share more a checklist or where you can identify that what are the do's and don'ts while we start to think about scaling agile in an organization. Things which will not be focus of this discussion is basically any framework level discussion, and one of the basic understanding is that while discussing these topics, we are pretty much aware about the basic agile frameworks like Scrum, Kanban, and other things. But we'll keep the discussions related to framework outside the scope, since that is going to be too much to address. So let me just share my impression while working with various leadership level people as well as managerial layers, that what does basically scaling means to people. Some people think that scaling is basically replicating one team's success into multiple successful teams, which means that organizations feel that, let me introduce agile to a, give me 1 second please. Yes, so basically the organizations feel that replicating the success of one agile team into multiple agile team. So I was talking about what the scaling means basically to the organization. Some people replicating the success of one team, which is they have experimented doing the agile ways of working, and replicating it to multiple silo teams is the way scaling is being defined. To some organizations, the question about scaling is, are teams and functions in organization ready to work in an integrated and collaborative way, which means that they are looking various teams to work as one function, and that's where they aim at achieving scaling in they want to achieve the scaling agile thing. Now let us take a closer look into this. If you see, I have presented the organizations which are more metrics in nature. In any organization there is a metrics culture. So generally the first step which organizations take, that there are various functions or departments, and they make some of the functions agile, some of the people in the functions agile. This could be function A, B, C, D. It could be IT, business, sales, marketing, or even the operational level, support level functions. And then they try to come up with certain sample teams who are working into agile mode. And for such organization, scaling agile means they still remain metrics, but agility is across all functions. When there is a project, when there is a product development, or whatever nature is there of the work, they basically create a team. They have a pool of people who are agile trained. But if you see the the reporting or the metrics culture remains same in the organization. Now let's take a different view. Some of the organizations say that we are metrics and we are agile, but this is not does not mean scaling to us. They basically look for a structure where all the departments are collaborating for a common goal, for a vision, for a program or a business goal. And for certain organizations, this is what agile scaling agile means. And most organizations, rather than taking a vertical view of these metrics, they try to put in the horizontal view of the functions, and that's where they introduce this different scaling frameworks works and talk about scaling agile. Let's talk about agility blocks. So agility starts at a different department level, as we have seen. Generally, this is the approach taken by most of the organizations. They focus on different departments. The organizations are more or less having the bold line of reporting and metrics culture, and there is a thought process of introducing agile. And if you see, the team start with process agility, engineering agility, where the different engineering practices and process level practices are being introduced. It could be engineering best practices like TDD, BDD, continuous integration. Process agility could be introduction of a framework, agreed ways of working, and then some agility is brought at level of program management level. And once generally the organizations achieve this kind of agility, they call it that their IT function is agile. This is first building block of achieving agility in an organization. If we move on to another level of agility, where which is more or less business level agility, it is just an example that people try to make the sales and marketing level functions agile. It is more relevant in case of product development. When it is IT services companies, probably these blocks will change. Customer support, I'm just picking an example. Customer support is another function which probably achieve the agility. Then functional experts group are there, which are made agile, being educated and trained to work in an agile environment. And then customer level agility is the customer agility is the final thing, where customers are being made agile while way of as part of way of working. And that's where organization claim that yes, this is the focus of bringing agility to the business. And if you see, the third level of agility focus is generally the where the strategic goals, your mission and values, business goals, organization goals are these functions, and these building blocks are being made agile. And that's where we say that we have we are focusing on leadership level agility. If I put these two things together, which is the IT level agility and business level agility, where basically more or less execution and business level teams are working together. There is a cross-functional interaction, cross-department interaction. These two departments probably work in a way where they are more integrated rather than representing a tight matrix organization. And to some organization, this is where scaling agile is achieved. And this is my impression that generally small to medium like organizations generally focus on achieving this focus on scaling agile in this fashion, where IT agility and business agility are combined together, and they work as multiple Scrum teams. They could introduce any framework like less framework or the same framework, and that's where scaling agile comes into picture. Now, if we put the all the things together and include leadership level agility into the scenario, that's where enterprise level agility is achieved across the organization, where you align all the functions, all the things together, and probably there could be support function as well, which is not listed in the PPT, depending on the organization size. This could also be focus of achieving enterprise level agility. This is an analysis by PwC, some case study just to have more detailed view of what is enterprise agility and does it signify the scaling. If you see that enterprise agility at the heart of this pie diagram, and it is basically supported by business strategy thinking, mega trends, macro factors, leadership and culture, innovation, customer centricity, and execution. And At very high level, operational environment, strategic responsiveness, and organizational flexibilities are the boundaries which are being touched upon. And that's where organizations say that they are practically moving towards achieving the enterprise agility. The reason these two different thought process has been put together in this previous slides is basically to challenge the thought process for an organization to identify what does scaling means to them. To my understanding, scaling agile is not a superset of enterprise agility, but it is a step towards achieving enterprise agility. And that's where most of the organizations falter, while identifying the need, whether it is they want to make to achieve to scale agile in their work environment when it comes to only customer needs and business needs and the execution, or they really want to include their mission values and strategic goals and alignment as part of the scaling. Generally, there are two approaches where agility blocks shape up together. One is a linear approach. Most of the organization don't go big bang, rather than going disruptive. They pick up the team level agility, and then they move on to the business level agility, and then probably touch on the other aspects. That is the one way of achieving the agility blocks. And another is that some parallel movement is happening across different functions, and there is a transformation which is taking place across the organization. This is a little disruptive in nature, and but the thing is, we cannot say what is the right and wrong, depending on the political scenario in the organization, depending on the buy-ins, depending on the acceptance to change and resistance to change. Any of these, most of the organizations follow a mix of these approaches. But my experience says that actually, if you have to really achieve the right results while achieving scaling, and if you are want to put the agility building blocks in shape, then I think the parallel transformation is the best approach. This is where I have more or less I shared with you what does scalability actually means as a concept. What does scalability mean? Scalability means at different levels to different organizations. In coming slides, I'm going to share my practical experiences. So, as I said, that what is the operational view and what is the tactical view before we achieve the scaling, or before we think about achieving targeting scaling agile or any scaled agile methodologies. Let's talk about the things which I would recommend an organization to consider while having scaled agile methodologies or the framework implementation in mind. First of the important thing is agile principle is to have the early feedback. An organization should be very prudent and very realistic about whether the early feedback is enabled at the process and engineering level. We'll not get into the absolute details. What does engineering level means? We all understand. It could be best engineering practices. It could be continuous integration pipeline, DevOps mindset, basically creating the cross-functional team, and taking care of all the quality as well as business level and process level achieve targets in place. Another thing to consider and is an indicator of a mature team is that is team following any continuous improvement plan, which is part of agile ways of working, and is it in place, and what is the trend? It is just lying into the books, or you are able to establish that yes, continuous improvement is happening across the teams at various levels, and this is monitored. Another thing related to the continuous improvement, as from my experience, is do we have the measurements and metrics in place to say that yes, continuous improvement is happening? Because most of the continuous improvement plan is reactive, which is based on probably retro or something, is not a very authentic way of establishing that yes, continuous improvement is the focus of teams. Another thing which makes a team mature and ready for step into the scaled agile framework is that how the teams are clearing their technical debt. What is the shape of the technical debt? Is it regularly addressed? Is it reduced? Or it is growing up and introducing more complexities at the architecture and design level, which are compromising more on the quality and focus more on the feature level development or the business value. But on the other hand, what is contrary to the above point is that, is team really delivering on the business values? And this can very easily be established from the customer feedback or the product owner feedback. But having said that, delivering as per the business value is not absolutely a only responsibility of the team. It involves product owner to be very judicious and on the top of the things. But yes, this is one of the checklist item, I would say, to ensure that yes, what is the delivery based upon. Another thing is that what is the state of automation? Where are teams on the journey from continuous integration on to continuous delivery? The reason I have brought this in specifically, which is more of a DevOps concept, is that when you try to scale teams, multiple teams into one integrated and collaborative way, I will briefly touch upon some of the frameworks, but one of the prerequisite is that you create an integrated architectural highway and an integrated continuous delivery system where teams are working on one single integrated demo, and this can only happen once you have the faster feedback and such concepts in place. So before moving into a scaled agile methodology, I think it is wise to invest at the team level into such concepts, and team starts contributing, delivering things on these principles. Now let's move on to the business level and talk about the operational view, how the business level function should look like while working into agile before we step into the scaled agile mindset. One thing is that teams are being given the prioritized and stable backlog, which means there is not too much of changes into the backlog, too much changes into the priorities during the sprint or during the cycle time, and team has relatively enough time and focus to deliver the things which are identified and prioritized in advance. And this also includes the team is having enough work at plate, which means that there is no spikes or there is no scope change within the sprint and within the cycle time when it comes to the capacity of the team. Another thing is that when we take this prioritization to the multiple team level, of course, if there are multiple teams, 3 or 4 teams or 5 teams working on to save one product, is there some judicious effort and intelligence put into prioritizing and enabling the delivery in integrated as per integrated business value and working software? So multiple teams are working on the different backlogs, and they have different features to develop. This is the responsibility of the business, and this reflects the business maturity. If they have identified the backlog, which is functionally delivering a working software once all teams have completed their cycle or the sprint, and this shows the maturity and a mindset at the business level where they can step into the scaled agile frameworks. Another thing which product owner or the business group should be really focused upon even while implementing agile as Scrum or Kanban or any other framework is that there is a unidirectional alignment between among the business goal, customer needs, and the requirements backlog. Most of the time, teams suffer when they deliver on the value and they get to know that yes, this is not the ultimate business goal, and product owner or the business is not aligned with the ultimate business goal. They don't have the visibility, and all of a sudden within the sprint there is a scope change. Within the release there is a scope change. There is a absolute new customer needs which are too high, and most of the time requirements are changing because customer need was not understood properly. If this is the unidirectional alignment is not present at business level, then I think scaling agile will really be tricky, because now imagine the problem with the one team when this thing is not present, and now imagine the problem when teams are attempting to work in one integrated collaborative way, and we are talking about 10, 15 or even 7, 8 agile teams while attempting any scaling framework. Another thing which is a maturity index of collaboration is that how collaborative business and teams are to produce functional and technical innovations, and this can easily be established through what are the innovation days investment or the FedEx Day investment which has been done while achieving a team level maturity. Is team really contributing to the functional innovation and technical innovation together with the proxy product owner or the product owner or the subject matter experts. And this is a little abstract, but this shows a mindset which is in place, and this shows the teams are really ready to connect at a level which is beyond just execution. Having said that, now the final slide of the webinar, where I would like to share the tactical view of before introducing scaled agile methodologies. And this is where I'm talking about the program level, where most of the time releases and things are being planned by the program manager or the senior program manager or the IT governance team, which are not very connected when agile is being attempted at the team level or at the product owner or the business level. Still, there are some riders which one should reflect to establish the maturity before achieving the scaled agile methodologies. Is the program management team aware of how agile works at the team level? We know that when teams are working in the agile mode, then there is a absolute distance between the program management team and the actual team, who is the execution team. The framework allows Scrum Master and rest of the project managers to be more integrated, and there is a more ownership and more authority which is being provided. But still, the question is program management team aware how teams are working in agile way? And that is important because program management teams still, if we see the agile onion, if we talk about it, I'm not able to produce it here, but when working in the agile setup like Scrum or Kanban, we focus on the day level, and the sprint level focus is being put into the place, and some visibility to the team is at the release level, but beyond that, whatever is being decided is outside the scope of agile. So, but to have scaled methodologies implementation and scaled agile as a target, how the release are being planned by the program management team is really a question, because my experience is that most of the time releases are being planned and placed by program management team with direct discussion with the business executives, which are beyond product owner, and some unrealistic plans are being made without even considering the capacity, without even considering the velocity of the teams, and there is always a delay in the releases, and there is always a delay into the UAT and other stuff. And this simply happens because program management team devises their plan with complete disconnect with what is happening at the team level. So some sort of maturity as a part of I would say a health check or pre-execution checklist before scaled agile is attempted should be done here. And another thing is that our program level metrics in place to give progress dashboard, which is without being intrusive to the teams. And here I am not talking about the burn down chart. I am here not talking about the velocity chart or about the sprint progress. There are other metrics, there are other reports which are available via various tools. But the question is how program management team is monitoring the overall process and progress without being intrusive to the team. Are there metrics in place or the dashboards in place where they can ensure that whatever is the planning, tactical and the strategic planning which is happening at high level is in alignment with the teams. And another thing which I have realized is that how program management team is involved into removing team impediments. Most of the time team impediments are being understood as a responsibility of the Scrum Master, but once you are working in the large and complex organizations, most of the things which are infrastructure level things, which are the access right things, which are basically providing the support in terms of hardware, in terms of new resources, in terms of trainings, are being stuck at program level due to budgeting or any other constraint. Now the question is program level team really involved into these impediments and needs of the team? And this is again an abstract thing and more of a culture thing, which actually promotes that yes, agility is being attempted at a level beyond team. And yes, this is what I have to share with you in this short and crisp webinar about scaling and how scaling is should be attempted before we are trying to attempt any kind of scaling framework. what should be the things we should be taking care at the team level, business level, and tactical level, which is the program level. I'll take a brief pause now, and if you are having any questions, please share. I see some questions that which are not able to view the screen, but I think this is solved. Please feel free to ask any questions. And if you have more insight into this, you can also share your viewpoint. Okay. One question is, any specific book recommended? As I shared that most of these observations are basically which are my experiences through consulting assignments. But yes, I would say if you go through the Scaled Agile framework, basically that gives you the framework website itself, gives you a very high level view of how Scaled Agile should look like. And if you are a little, intuitive in observing how things are happening at your end, you can, create a match into the match with the requirements. Another question is, we are following Scaled Agile framework. What is different between Scrum and Kanban from execution of project perspective? Uh, okay, adopting Scaled Agile. I'm just taking a question from, Pankaj. Where adopting Scaled Agile is a little difficult. Pankaj, could you share what are the exact difficulties? Then it will be more clear as part of one question. Because yes, I fully agree that you're trying to achieve a scaled agile and it is difficult. That's a very broad level statement. If you can throw more light, that would be more intuitive discussion. I will, in the meantime, move on to the next question. What is the difference between Scrum and Kanban from execution of project perspective? Uh, See, I'll quickly briefly touch upon this. Scrum is basically more disciplined, and it is stipulating a framework which is more asking you to do certain things, where you are committing work in progress basically through a sprint cycle. Whereas and Scrum generally is suitable for the development project or for the project where you have the visibility of a backlog for the committed sprint cycle, which means a product owner can commit to a team for 2 weeks of work or 1 week of work or whatever is your sprint cycle. Whereas Kanban is more for issues which are unpredictable or a kind of a work where team needs to focus on clearing the things as fast as possible, generally used into the production and support environment, or for the teams which are generally moving away from the development with the into the support with some UAT phase in progress as test. This is what I see as a difference at high level. I think I have also answered this question, that in what scenarios Scrum and Kanban are recommended. Is this webinar discuss only program level agile issues or portfolio level as well? I have kept it very brief. The issues are only, I have identified the issues at the program level, because the topic is about what are the problems while achieving a scaling framework or scaled agile, and that's why I have not included any portfolio level issues. I have just tried to identify what should be the basic minimum things should be in place as per my observation, so that you can pick up the battle at the next level, which is more at portfolio or strategic level. How effectively we can implement SAFe is a very open question. As I said that I would not like to get into the framework level discussion given the scope of this webinar, but if I touch upon, keep the discussions limited to the scope of this. Effectiveness of implementing SAFe majorly depends upon what is the maturity of your agile implementation when it comes to Scrum, Kanban, and other silo level framework or the team level framework. What is the maturity over there? And that's where the scaled agile or SAFe implementation matters. Most of the time, teams are struggling with implementing safe because the basic underlying Scrum process or the Kanban process is in tatters. And safe basically introduces more layers to it, which is more program level layer and a portfolio layer, where a lot of preparation and a lot of integration happens across the layers and coming down as value streams to the execution layer. But the key factor for success is that how execution teams are aligned and aware of working in basic frameworks, I would say. Is Agile suitable for all types of project? Though it is bread and butter for me, but I do not agree to this point. I think before attempting any kind of Agile methodology or Agile need, there should be a fair assessment of the problems, and then in light, there should be a judicious and wise decision that whether Agile is really useful for us or not. Do people need to be safe Agilist certified? Very subjective question and out of scope, but probably it is not harmful to go to the class and gain some knowledge to scale safe Agilist certification. And a lot of material is also available on website as well. Some people who have having the coaching and consulting experience, probably it will be more intuitive to go through the material over the website rather than straightway jumping into the classes. Classes, I would say, would be more meaningful for the people who are not hands-on onto that stuff. Probably the project managers or the program managers, I would say. Please discuss something more about Kanban. I'm really afraid that this is a little out of scope. So that will probably discussing Kanban. I generally take the workshops that takes at least 30 minutes of download to actually share what Kanban and Scrum is about, and that will be too much for this discussion. I would recommend you to go through the AgiVetta webinars which are available on YouTube. Probably somebody might have already shared some knowledge about this particular topic, and that will be useful for you, Arnab. System for a banking organization. Sorry, this is again, okay. Yes, if you are developing or refactoring a code to a new system, we are developing a file system for a bank organization. It has huge epics, MBIs, and user story, and we are not able to complete within 2 weeks, which is for our iteration time. That is one difficulty. Okay. Pankaj, this problem I am also facing with some of the assignments and probably into the same domain as well. And that's where I'll share my experience. From your question, I have just got a glimpse of the problem, but not the absolute problem. One of the problem which I have identified while working with the teams in this session is that most of the time when drawing the product backlog, starting the sprint, we are drawing the stories which are not basically evaluated on the invest principle. And invest principle is basically that story is independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, testable, and valuable. And sizable. S is for sizable. And here S is very important. Sizable is very important because during that process, on weighing a story on that process, you identify whether the story is of right size to fit into your iteration. This is the one thing which I would recommend as a theory and as a practice as well. Another thing which is more important, which I'm not sure is the case with you as well, is most of the time your backlog might be flooded with the stories which are still in the analysis and design phase or the clarification stage, and you draw such stories into your backlog, and there is perhaps no visibility and no clarity about what development has to be done. Why I'm saying this, in current scenario where I am working, I am consulting, this is more related to the visibility issue which has to be proven. We draw the stories which are not groomed into the backlog, and they keep on going sprint on sprint. But these are the two things which I would like to share from my experience, that why your sprints are having stories which are going trot on trot and there is no completion. What is the major attribute of facilitators like RTE in scaling up Agile, coaching ability, or any other than that, Uh, I would recommend you to again, go through the very focused webinars which are being conducted on YouTube channel of AgiVetta, and definitely you will get an answer to this question, because there are topics which are completely talking about scaling Agile frameworks and probably talking about this role as well. What are the metrics at the program and business level? There is also a webinar which is available on the metrics at the business and program level. And right now, I cannot, give a very absolute list of the metrics which are there at the program or business level. It has to be, very customized and should be done while identifying what are the business goals. Probably the time to market, probably diversification. These might be, metrics at the business level, that how fast you can achieve the diversification. These are very high level things which I am talking about, but these have to be really granular down to a level of metrics which are tied down to your teams as well. So there should be a correlation between the team metrics and the business and program metrics. But there is a again specific webinar related to this particular question. Kanban does not implement to SAFe, as SAFe is more for Scrum. That is not as per my knowledge, Ritesh. The SAFe is basically addressing the issues of disconnect at the program and portfolio level, and underlying implementation, the way of implementation remains same, whether it is Kanban, Scrum, or a Scrumban. That does not impact the implementation of SAFe. How good these frameworks, Scrum, Scrumban, or Kanban are implemented, are mature, is definitely a bedrock to implement a successful SAFe project. Okay, Pankaj, I got your question, that your questions will be at info@agivetta.com. This is in context of SAFe, but you can give other example, as teams will generally work in Scrum mode at team level. Is there any software application available to automate this scaled agile methodologies? Right now, honestly, I'm not aware of any such software, but definitely there are tools which should be available. At least I know I heard about some tools which is to measure your DevOps maturity and other maturity. So I think there is a combination of tools which can be introduced to achieve that what is the maturity and what is the progress of scaled agile methodologies. Facing disconnection in between, which is breaking the audio. Yes, but SAFe is more for Scrum primarily. If you see, Jira is again out of scope. Arnab. Kanban, for example, is not suited for development projects, and when someone scales Agile, it's more on application dev project. I will just share my experience on this. See, if we look at the organizations, there is definitely, when we are working into IT governance model, where we are IT service provider, the differentiation between the development project and the maintenance project is there. And having said that, yes, what you are mentioning as a question, as an observation, is true. Kanban, for example, is not suited for development project, and when someone scales Agile, it is more on application dev project. Probably it might be true, or might be hindrance when the mode of working is IT service provider. But if you take the product organization, basically the concept of having a development team and a separate maintenance team is diluting away with the new ways of working, with the new ways of development. When we are talking about the DevOps mindset, we are talking about that one who has created the software is responsible for maintaining it in the production, and that basically dilutes the line between these two teams and these two project definitions. And having said that, this is an observation which I have while working with some of the product organizations, and they don't see it as a reason or a identifying a framework and then discussing about SAFe as a successful framework or not. But yes, I somewhat agree that yes, when IT service company, we are working in an IT service provider mode, then the observation is different. For me, if you can share an example of Kanban used in a SAFe project, as I said, that framework level discussion will be too deep. as part of this, scope of this webinar. How to measure performance of a team in agile and scaled agile working environment. Again, I would say this is a little out of scope. Sorry about that, but I'm just focusing on the scope. Otherwise, discussion will really go into much details. Please feel free to type these questions, and probably someone will from AgiVetta team will help you to point to the right webinar or content to have the answer. How do we know projects chosen will be suitable for agile or waterfall? A little tricky. As I said, that you have to really do. We generally at AgiVetta, while attempting a this kind of solution, generally, a workshop is being done at the organization level to understand the need of agile first of all, and then what should be the pockets. And again, at a very high level, again out of scope, but I can share that that depends upon the approach. Whether you want to have a disruptive approach where you want to have the agile implemented across the organization and take the risk depending on the size of organization, or you do sample projects which are less risk prone, and then you identify what should be the way of going forward. Absolutely. This deck will be available with the audio onto YouTube channel. How much percent of change in normal change is normally allowed for scope in a sprint? Very subjective, Pawan. There is no right yardstick of this, but I would say that rather than identifying it as a percentage, this is my opinion, and my colleagues, my coach fraternity, or other people, experts, or the project managers might differ. I generally recommend to allow a scope change which is coming to your way only in the 30% execution cycle of which means if you have a 2 week sprint cycle, the changes should be entertained only as good as, if there are big changes, only as good as in the 3-4 days basically. Because as you progress into the sprint, your work in progress increases, your focus increases, and it really becomes hard to leave something which is in progress that requires a lot of rollback or refactoring and stuff, and team is really unfocused on that. Or the scope should be allowed into at any point of the sprint when there are unattended stories, and a similar value story can be bargained and negotiated. And I think that's all. When I see the question list, there might be certain questions which I might have missed due to time constraint or due to the out of scope. But again, as I said, please feel free if your questions are unanswered at info@agivetta.com, and we'll try our level best to point you to the right direction. Having said that, thank you very much for your participation and for the questions. It was really insightful. Thank you. Have a great day.